story has its roots in Spain. In 1958, Spanish Claretian priest Alfonso Maria Duran was sent to the southwestern United States and there propagated the Cursillo movement, which is Spanish for little course. This practices an intensive retreat that emphasizes the call of the laity to holiness and apostolate. I couldn't find much online about Duran specifically and his history and life leading up to the creation of the organization that we're going to be focusing on today, Miles Jesu, but for reasons that will soon become abundantly clear, anything tying Duran to Miles Jesu present day appears to have been scrubbed from the internet. But what I have been able to find in the public record gives us an idea of how the timeline has played out. Because of the Cursillo movement being introduced in the United States, a few young men who made the Cursillo retreat in Phoenix, Arizona, decided to dedicate their lives and secular careers to answering the call to holiness and apostolate. Under Father Duran's guidance, they formed the first Miles Jesu community on January 12, 1964. Miles Jesu, which is Latin for Soldier of Jesus, is a Catholic institute of consecrated life whose membership comprises lay people and clerics who take religious vows, and in addition, since it is structured as an ecclesial family of consecrated life, also has people in other states of life like married, widowed, etc. as members. In 1970, membership was open to widows, and a few years later to unmarried women, with separate branches for men and women. Communities were established also in other countries from 1984 onward, and the Institute's general house was moved to Rome. Some members took the traditional vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience, living in communities called domus, which is Latin for house. Houses were segregated according to gender and organized in a fashion similar to what is found in Opus Dei or Regnum Christi, with some members engaged in professional work and some in different apostolates within Miles Jesu. Members could be celibate, married, non-married, or widowed, depending on their membership type. Between 1964 and 2004, Miles Jesu enjoyed some expansion and close association with the Vatican, particularly from 1996 onward, when it began organizing these international congresses for converts, with the 2000 Congress held in Rome with 700 Catholic converts allegedly in attendance. Organizations like Miles Jesu, the Legion of Christ, the SCV, and so on sort of sprang up in response to a number of socio-political and cultural movements that gained popularity during the mid-20th century. Because these organizations appeared to inspire renewed interest and zeal, particularly in younger generations who were already not as devout or predisposed to the religiosity that had held sway over their parents and grandparents, the Vatican, and specifically John Paul II, welcomed these organizations and their founders with open arms and far too few questions asked. Since you are learning about this religious organization on this platform, I probably don't need to tell you that, as is so often the case, things ended up going south for a number of the people who jumped into this fresh new upstart organization. Complaints began to surface in 2004 regarding the leadership of Duran, who had been acting as superior general since he founded the organization. He was described as a somewhat domineering figure. In May 2007, the Vicariate of Rome, where the Miles Jesu General House was situated, removed Duran from his post as Superior General due to what was defined as serious mental and physical health problems. Concurrently with that, 13 members of Miles Jesu requested an official investigation into the organization. That investigation, which began in June of 2007, confirmed that Duran was essentially off his rocker and practiced an erratic exercise of authority facilitated by instilling into the members an unhealthy sense of obedience that was not in accord with the discipline of the Catholic Church. In May 2009, Father Barry Fisher, CPPS, was appointed commissary to revise the practices and customs of Miles Jesu, revising the Constitution with the assistance of a council composed of members of the women's and men's domus branches and in cooperation with the whole membership. I found a testimony from a former member and senior official of Miles Jesu named Andrew Sullivan that was published on a French blog in 2013. Sullivan goes into some detail about the investigations that were conducted and the people who conducted them, namely Father Fisher. If you want to read the entire thing, it is linked in the source document in the episode description. But what I want to specifically focus on is what Sullivan had to say about why a thorough investigation was warranted, and Hold on to your hats because it gets dark fast. According to Sullivan, the documents cite several reasons to justify a thorough investigation, including the following. In a case involving kissing, fellatio, and masturbation, Father Duran was accused of sexually soliciting young boys in the congregation and prospective clergy. The Vicar General, along with other members, was accused of covering up the affair. Father Duran was accused of being addicted to certain drugs, including painkillers and psychotropic medications. Because of this addiction, he was constantly in a dazed state. Despite occasional moments of lucidity, he was incapable of governing. For many years, he displayed an ultra-authoritarian use of power, sociopathic symptoms, cult-like tendencies, and a complete disregard for the requirements of canon and civil law. Furthermore, mimicking the practices of Masonic lodges, a secret agreement protected Father Duran and allowed him to maintain control over the appointment of his successors. The documents also specify that Father Duran's methods of governance included keeping his subjects ignorant and uneducated. He had created a new form of obedience that destroyed the mental and physical health of his members, trampling on their basic human dignity. For example, he demanded that a member perform mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, bathe him, or administer doses of drugs. While he assured his members that these actions and spiritual practices corresponded with the purest tradition of the Catholic Church, Father Duran's methods of governance were, in fact, based primarily on techniques of suggestion, lies, humiliation, and manipulation. Under the pretext of unconditional loyalty to the Pope, members of the Catholic hierarchy were manipulated into publicly supporting the congregation, completely unaware, of course, of the group's internal methods of governance. The documents highlight that the candidates were recruited through lies and misleading promises, such as the opportunity to pursue studies, become a priest, or be sent on missions to specific countries. Subsequently, there was in fact no serious training program, and so the new uneducated and ignorant members were coerced into dedicating their lives to Miles Jesu. The congregation's constitutions were designed to ensure maximum rights for the institution and minimal rights for the members. The congregation's primary task was to recruit new candidates, raise funds, and try to implement the founders' latest unpredictable ideas. At the time of the investigation, several dozen members were in very worrying emotional states. 9 exhibited clearly suicidal behavior. I'm only mentioning the tip of the iceberg here. Entering the congregation of Miles Jesu was like falling down the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland into an experimental form of consecrated life that escaped the church's oversight and developed wickedly out of control. Raise your hand if you feel like you may have heard this story before. Father Duran finally kicked the can in October of 2017 at 86 years of age. Miles Jesu is still around today, albeit in what appears to be a very reduced fashion. A quick web search doesn't return many results, and any activities that the organization is currently engaged in appear to be landlocked to the Phoenix, Arizona region. The story may be over as far as anyone from the Catholic Church is concerned, but the impact that Miles Jesu had on the people it attracted was real and outsized. And I think that there is still quite a lot to be gained from listening to the experiences of the people who lived through it.